So now we've established our story. You've got your story, I've got my story. It's time to put it to the music and see what we can make happen, what magic we can make happen. So this is also where the melody tends to come about. The melody is really the marriage between the words and the music. It's what make the two work together. So writing lyrics at the same time as your melody is actually a pretty good technique in order to make it sound really like a complete song with the chord progression. So let's start with the verse. We know we've got this boy meets girl story. We know we're talking about a couple of friends in my story at least. And we've also decided in my story that the singer is the boy and the girl is the person that the song is being sung to. She's got problems. So I'm going to create a lyric about that. And now's a good time to flip over to a fresh sheet of paper as well so that we can start jotting down some good lines while also creating our melody over our music. So go ahead and get a fresh sheet of paper and let's see what we can make happen. I'm going to start listening to that verse that I wrote, my first progression. And I'm singing to this girl, so I'm going to get her attention. So I might just not make this rocket science, but let her know I'm talking to her. So I'm going to start like this. Well, hey girl, I see you're alone tonight. All right, we know she's lonely, so I'm going to get her attention. Hey girl, I see you're alone tonight. I'm envisioning, she's got this drug problem. She's on her own. It's late at night, and she's in a bad way. And again, I'm an old friend. I haven't seen her in a while, so I know what her potential is. That's my story here. Think about your story in that context. Well, hey girl, I see you're alone tonight. She's scared. It's a scary world when you can't find the light. Okay, so I'm using the word light. It rhymes with tonight. It's the opposite, right? Because at night it's dark. And I know she's scared, so it's a scary world when you can't find the light. And you should be writing out your lyrics too in a similar way. And you'll start to see where the rhyme scheme, like tonight and light, starts to come into it. I've made it very clear right up front who I'm talking about, who I'm talking to. I know she's alone. I know it's night. I know she's scared and she's trying to find the light. So that's starting to become the development of my lyric. Now, where are we going to go from here? Scary world when you can't find the light. Now I'm going to go to my transition. That was that next section that I added to help me get to the chorus. And I want to establish what our relationship is, because I haven't really said what our relationship is. So she's my old friend. My old friend. I'm going to stick that right in there so that now it is clear to everyone listening to this song that we go back a long way. My old friend, and I'm trying to teach her, I'm trying to enlighten her and show her that she's got the potential. So why doesn't she know what's going on here? My old friend, don't you know? Don't you? My old friend, don't you know? What happens to a person when they're down and out on drugs? They're running from something. They're hiding from life. So I'm just going to go with that idea. My old friend, don't you know, you can run. That's what she's doing. You can hide. That's what she's doing. In your song, it might be a little different, but you get the idea. My old friend, don't you know, you can run, you can hide. But what really happens when you run and hide? you keep it all inside. And this works really well poetically because hide and side, inside, rhyme. My old friend, don't you know, you can run, you can hide, but, I need a but because I'm trying to tell her that it isn't working, but you keep it all inside. My old friend, don't you know, you can run, you can hide, but you keep it all inside. So I've got my verse, and I've got my ramp, and now I'm hitting my big chorus. Well, what am I going to do with my big chorus? I'm going to go back to my first page here because I remember I came up with something that I thought was important enough to write down. Turn around. That's exactly what I'm trying to convey to her. It's the most important message of the song. You got to turn your life around. Turn around. So I'll go back here. Maybe, so I've got my verse. Let me get organized here. I've got my ramp, I'm calling it, my pre-chorus. So now I need my hook or my chorus. And I'm going to go with turn around because that is the most important message I can convey to her at this point. Turn around. So turn around. I want to give her hope. And I know she's lost. So turn around. I'm giving her hope. It's not too far. This rhyme is going to work out nicely. Turn around. It's not too far going from lost to found. I like that because we always talk about lost and found. But I'm talking about a transition. Turn around. It's not too far going from lost to found. So turn around. It's not too far going from now see, I don't like, it feels too final. And I haven't said everything I want to say in this chorus. So going to that chord right there, it feels like I'm done. Turn around. It's not too far going from, maybe I'll go back to the chord that I just left. All right, so turn around. I'm going to go back to that chord. It's not too far going from lost to found. No, it's okay. I've got the idea. I'm going to alter it. I'm actually going to, this is sort of a majory sounding chord, but for this transition, I'm going to make it a minor sounding chord, like that. Again, in your song, try that. It doesn't necessarily mean you want to go from major to minor. You might want to go to a different chord, but it's a good thing to try. Instead of ending your chorus so early, go to a different chord, and then we'll go right back into the chorus again. Watch, I'll show you what I mean. So turn around. It's not too far going from lost to found. You've hit the ground. Don't you fade. And now I'll go back to that end chorus. Now, I added another line here that just kind of came to mind as I was writing the song. So turn around. It's not too far going from lost to found. You've hit the ground. Ground rhymes with found. It's kind of an odd place for a rhyme, but it sounds really natural. And that's exactly what's happened to her. She has hit the ground. You've hit the ground. And I really want to end this chorus with the title of the song. So turn around. It's not too far going from lost to found. You've hit the ground. Don't you fade. Don't you fade. I don't want her to fade, which rhymes with sunflower in the shade. So you've hit the ground. Don't you fade. I don't want her to fade. She's got so much potential. Don't you fade. I could say don't you fade away. Actually, that's really what I mean. I don't want her to fade away, but fade rhymes with shade. So I think I want to leave it at that. It implies fade away. So don't you fade, sunflower in the shade. That's a pretty good hook, I think. You got to come up with a hook of your own for your song that has a nice rhyme scheme and really drives the point home. But I like that. Don't you fade, sunflower in the shade. It really drives the point home. Hey, let's see how it sounds. Let me do a chorus here. So turn around. It's not too far going from lost to found. You've hit the ground. Don't you fade, sunflower in the shade. All right, I think I've got my chorus, and I decided earlier when I was linking progressions that my chorus is going to go right back into the verse. So I might just leave the last chord of the chorus ringing out. So it'd be turn around, it's not too far going from lost to found. Don't you fade, sunflower in the shade, and then back into my verse. So that works out pretty well. Let's run this down from the top. I don't have a second verse yet, but let's go from the first verse through the ramp, through the hook. Now this is what you should be doing with your song. You've got the parts. Let's see how they all flow together. In my song, it goes something like this. Well, hey girl, I see you're alone tonight. I want to stop here and just point out something that I decided. Well, hey girl, that note, girl, is the same as alone, I think. Hey girl, I see you're alone tonight. So that's a melody thing. I've made girl and alone the same note in my melody. It doesn't mean that you have to do that, but by returning to that note just a few words later, it's comfortable. We've been there before musically, and so that's comfortable. And then tonight is kind of by itself, and it's an important word because it sets the visual for the song. She's alone tonight. It's dark. So, hey girl, I see you're alone tonight. A scary world when you can't find the light. Now I kind of return to that same note again in find. Now, what's important is that when you're writing your lyrics, you want your melody to emphasize certain points. Hey girl, I want everybody to know that that's who I'm speaking to. And I see that you're alone. She's alone. The girl is alone. And it's a scary world because she's trying to find something. So I'm just pointing that out, that I've made a melodic choice to use the same note melodically to emphasize the words that I think are really important in that verse. Hey girl, I see you're alone tonight. Scary world when you can't find the light. So those are things you want to do in your song too. You find those common notes in the melody to emphasize the words that really set up the meaning of your verse, okay? Find the light. Mama ramp. My old friend. I picked it up there. My old friend. My is important, okay? I'm not saying she's old, so I'm not going to emphasize old. But she's my friend. My friend. I care for her, so I want to make sure that that's... My old friend, don't you know you? Don't you know? I'm telling her something here. I'm telling her something that she should know. My old friend, don't you know you can run, you can hide, but you keep it all inside. So turn around. It's not too far going from lost to found. You've hit the ground. Don't you fade, sunflower the shade, and that's cool. And I just changed the feel of it here. Turn around, it's not too far. Going from, and I repeated going from lost to found. Kind of a singer thing more than a writer thing. But that's the way I interpreted the melody for that. Where am I going to go from here? What do I do next? I've got my verse, I've got my ramp, I've got my chorus or my hook. Now I'm back into a second verse. So I've got to come up with something maybe similar to my first verse melodically, but I've got to develop my story. All right, I've established who I'm speaking to. I've established that we're old friends. That's an interesting idea. We're old friends. How old is our friendship? How long have we been around for? I'm going to go to a new page here to develop this idea. We're old friends. How old? All right, if we're really old friends, then I'm going to have to think back into my memories of my old friend. Because remember, I remember her being, a person with a lot of potential. And now I've seen her all these years later and she's down and out. Think about your story in that context. How is it growing? How is the relationship between the people in the story? All right, so what does an old friend do? An old friend remembers. They think back. So I'm gonna tell her a little story. In fact, in my story, I'm gonna tell her a story. I'm gonna say, I remember when. I remember when. So that automatically shows that I have a reference to something in the past. I remember when. Maybe we were kids. What do kids do? Kids they act like they're older. They role play. They pretend. Pretend almost rhymes with when. I remember when we'd pretend. Right? And I want to emphasize the fact that we go way back. We were kids. So I remember when we'd pretend that we were older. Let's see, that we were older than we were. Go ahead and write out your lyric and your story development in a similar way. Let's see if that works. I remember when we'd pretend that we were older than we were. I don't like that. I remember when we'd pretend that when? We'd pretend, how about to be? We'd pretend to be older than we were. Then I don't have to repeat were and were. I don't have that. It's not a great sound. So how about to be? When we'd pretend to be older than we were. Now I've got more things to work with, different sounding words. And I'm putting more words in this second verse than I did with the first verse. The first verse was rather sparse to really set it up melodically and musically. But now I can start telling my story. I remember when we'd pretend to be older than we were. All right, I've got that down, right? What is that? When you're pretending, you're fantasizing. Okay, so I remember when we'd pretend to be older than we were. Yeah, but now we're older, okay? So that fantasy is no longer. So fantasy is reality now. We're older. And that's kind of an interesting concept. I remember when we pretend to be older than we were. Pretend to be older than we were. Now, fantasy is reality. Now, I need the word now because I have to make the distinction that I'm bringing us back to present tense. Present tense. Now, fantasy is reality. All right. Fantasy is reality. We're older, but you know what? We were maybe cute kids having fun pretending, and now she's not what I had ever hoped she would be in my story. Think about that for your story. So, my story. Now, fantasy is reality. Man, it hurts. It hurts to see her. Hurts to see her, to see you, right? Because I'm singing it to her. It hurts to see you. She doesn't even realize because she's so out of it. So look what you've done to yourself. Look what you've done to yourself. I'm really sketching this out. Self. I don't want to end the word with self. It's not a it's not a very pretty sound. So I'm just going to refer to her again and kind of as a girl. Look at yourself, girl. Something like that. Now fantasy is reality, and it hurts to see you. Look at what you've done to yourself, girl. All right, let's go back and look at our verse. My verse sounds like this. I remember when we'd pretend to be older than we were. Now fantasy is reality, and it hurts to see you. Look at what you've done to yourself, girl. All right, verse 2, pretty much done. You work on your verse 2 as well. And you can see how my verse 2 has really developed the story from verse 1. I didn't say much in verse 1. I said some important things, but now verse 2 is giving more backstory to our relationship. And now I'm back at my ramp again, getting to my second chorus. And, you know, it's a common thing to repeat it. It's a common thing to emphasize, hey, my old friend. So I'm back to my ramp. My old friend, don't you know? But you know what? I don't want to say exactly the same thing. I'm going to vary it up just a little bit to keep it interesting. My old friend, and don't you know, I was surprised earlier that she didn't know this, but now I've told her, I've pointed it out to her, so why doesn't she see it yet? Don't you see? And see is a good word because it's kind of musically, it's don't you see, it's very open. My old friend, don't you see? Before I said, let's go back and look, you should look back at what you did before. I said, my old friend, don't you know, you can run, you can hide, but you keep it all inside. All right. Same idea. I'm going to stick with the same idea, but I'm going to modify a little bit. My old friend, don't you see? If you run, instead of you can run, I'll put if you run. And you hide. I got to make sure she really gets this point. My old friend, don't you see? If you run and you hide, you'll keep it all inside. But you'll keep it all inside is not powerful enough anymore. I've already said that. So, but I want to stay with the rhyme scheme, So if you run and you hide, you know what it'll do? It will eat you up inside. Eat you up inside. That's what's happening to her. She's being eaten up inside through her problems. It will eat you up inside. All right, so now I've got a ramp that's very similar to my first ramp, but slightly different enough where the story's developed. My old friend, don't you see? If you run and you hide, it'll eat you up inside. And then I'm back to my chorus, turn around. I'm going to do something melodically here, though. I don't want the melody leading into my second chorus to be the same as it was in the first chorus, because I want my song to grow from beginning to end. I don't want it to just repeat. I want the whole song to evolve, even though I'm repeating sections. My old friend, don't you see? You can run, you can hide, but it will eat you up inside. I'm going to go high there, big, break into my chorus. But it will eat you up inside. So turn around, back to my chorus. It's not too far, going from lost to found. You've hit the ground. Don't you fade, sunflower in the shade. And now I'm back to my verse. I don't know that I want to put a third verse in here, so we're going to have to come up with something different. For now, I want you to get those main sections together. Get your verses, your choruses, and your ramp together musically, melodically, and lyrically, using some of these techniques that we've done. Write everything down. You know, don't be afraid to write something down. You're not committing it to life. You can always, as I have, cross things out. My page looks like a mess. Yours should too. That's the beauty of the work, is getting to the point where you've come up with something that you really like. Take your time, get that down, and then check that off your list, and we'll get to the next section together in just a few minutes.